Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It all started on a night that wasn't supposed to mean anything, just another quiet evening in a small apartment where the only sound was the soft hum of the ceiling fan. The rain was tapping against the window, the kind of sound that makes you want to wrap yourself in a blanket and forget the world outside exists. But then, in the silence between thunder, I felt it, the unmistakable feeling that someone else was there. I reached for the light switch, heart pounding faster than I could understand, and before my fingers could touch it, a warm hand wrapped around my wrist. The air froze. The world stopped. And in that suspended moment, I didn't know whether to scream or stay still. His voice was low, almost like a whisper brushing against my skin. "Don't turn it on," he said. "Just stay." My pulse raced, not from fear anymore, but something far more confusing. Something that made me want to listen. I knew that voice. I'd know it anywhere. The same voice that used to call my name softly across late-night conversations, the same voice that had vanished months ago without a trace. He was the one who left without goodbye, without a reason. And now, here he was, standing inches away from me in the dark, like the shadow of every unanswered question that kept me awake for nights. My chest tightened as he stepped closer, the warmth of his breath brushing against my face. I should have pulled away. I should have demanded answers. But instead, I froze. He took another step, his hand still holding mine, and in that breathless space between confusion and longing, he leaned in. His lips found mine, slowly, deeply, like time had never moved, like every word we never said was being spoken through that kiss. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't perfect. It was desperate. The kind of kiss that blurs the line between love and madness. The kind that leaves you wondering if this is closure, or just the start of something far more dangerous. And then, just as quickly as it began, he pulled away. I could barely see him in the dark, but I could feel the storm inside both of us. "You shouldn't have turned off your phone," he whispered, his tone trembling with something between pain and regret. "You don't know what you've done." What did he mean by that? What could I possibly have done? The lights flickered, the thunder rolled, and by the time I found the courage to switch the light on, he was gone. But the air still carried his warmth. His scent. His mystery. Tell me, what would you have done if someone from your past appeared in the dark, uninvited, but your heart didn't tell you to run? Would you trust them? Or would you turn on the light and face what's been hiding all along? The silence after he disappeared was almost louder than the rain outside. I stood there, still frozen near the light switch, my wrist tingling where his fingers had held me just moments ago. It didn't feel real. How could it? Months had passed since he left, no messages, no calls, not even a reason. Just gone. And now he'd shown up in the middle of the night like a ghost who still remembered how I breathed. I finally turned on the light. The room looked exactly the same, my jacket on the chair, the book on the coffee table, the half-empty cup of tea. Nothing out of place. Except for the faint mark of his handprint on the window, slightly blurred by the rain. He'd been here. Really here. And suddenly, all the questions I'd buried started clawing their way back to the surface. Who told him where I lived now? Why come back like this? And what did he mean when he said I didn't know what I'd done? I sat down slowly, trying to make sense of it all. The memories came rushing in, the nights we stayed up talking until sunrise, his quiet laugh that always softened whatever was broken in me, the promises he made that never made it past his lips. He was the kind of person who always carried secrets behind his smile, and maybe that's what drew me in the most. I thought I could read him, fix him, love him enough to make him stay. But maybe I never really knew who he was to begin with. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. Maybe I was just tired, half dreaming when I thought he was there. But when I stepped outside to leave for work, a folded note was tucked under my door. No name, no return address, just one line written in the handwriting I knew too well. Don't trust the light. That was it. Simple. Cryptic. Frightening. My chest tightened. The same sense of unease crept back, crawling under my skin. Every sound felt amplified, the passing cars, the ticking of the clock, even the soft creak of the hallway floorboards. I couldn't help but wonder if he was still watching me. That night, I tried to sleep with the lamp on, but it didn't help. Every flicker of light across the wall made me think he was standing there again, waiting for me to reach out. Waiting to pull me back into that dark space between fear and longing. And the worst part? Deep down, I wanted to see him again. To ask him everything. To feel that same heartbeat against mine, even if I knew it would only leave me with more questions than answers. The next few days felt like walking through a fog I couldn't escape. I went to work, smiled when I had to, pretended everything was normal, but nothing was. Every shadow looked different now. Every sound made me turn my head just a little too quickly. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still there, just out of sight. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was him. I told myself not to think about the note, but those 4 words kept echoing in my head, don't trust the light. It didn't make sense, and yet the more I thought about it, the more I realized something strange. The night he appeared, the power had flickered 3 times before I reached for the switch. The same thing happened again 2 nights later. And when it did, I felt it, the same chill in the air, that strange mix of fear and something else I didn't want to name. I decided to talk to Mia, my closest friend, the only one who knew a little about what had happened between us. She listened quietly as I told her everything, her expression turning serious. "You really think he came back?" she asked softly. "After everything?" I didn't know how to answer that. All I could say was, "I felt him, Mia. I'm not crazy." She reached across the table, holding my hand. "Then you need to find out what he wants before it's too late." That night, I went through the old things he'd left behind, a few books, a leather bracelet, and one photograph of us from a trip we never finished. On the back of the picture, I'd never noticed before, there were faint pencil marks. A small address. It wasn't his old place, it was somewhere else, about an hour away. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if I should go. My heart said yes. My mind screamed no. What if it was a trap? What if it was his way of pulling me back into the chaos he'd left behind? But then again, what if it was a clue, something he wanted me to find? I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face in the dark, his hand gripping mine, his voice whispering, "You don't know what you've done." I finally gave in. The curiosity, the fear, the longing, they all blended into something I couldn't ignore anymore. The address on the back of that old photograph felt like a pulse calling me. By the next evening, I found myself driving through a narrow road lined with trees, their shadows bending in strange ways under the dim streetlights. The rain had started again, soft at first, then steady, making the windshield wipers move in a slow rhythm that matched my heartbeat. The GPS said I was close. But as I turned the corner, the signal vanished. Just like that, no map, no signal, only silence and darkness. I pulled over in front of what looked like an old cabin, half hidden behind overgrown vines. The porch light flickered weakly, almost like it was struggling to stay alive. And that's when I noticed something on the door, a faint handprint, just like the one he'd left on my window that night. My hands trembled as I stepped closer. The air was cold and heavy, thick with the scent of rain and wood. I pushed the door slightly, and it opened without resistance, creaking like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside, it was almost empty. Dust covered the furniture, and yet, in the middle of the room, there was a single lamp turned on, glowing faintly beside a table. On it lay another note. It read, "If you're reading this, it means you still trust me." My breath caught. I looked around, half expecting him to appear from the shadows again. The floorboards creaked somewhere behind me, and I spun around, but there was no one. Only the soft whisper of the rain hitting the roof. Then, the light flickered once, twice, and went out completely. The darkness swallowed everything. And in that moment, I felt a hand brush against my shoulder. I froze. "You came," a voice murmured behind me. The same voice I'd been hearing in my head for weeks. My chest tightened, my mind torn between running and staying. "I had to," I whispered. "I need answers." He stepped closer, his silhouette faintly outlined by the lightning flashing through the window. "Then listen," he said. "But whatever happens next, you can't turn on the light." The storm outside grew louder, almost like it was warning me. I could feel the tension vibrating in the air, every nerve in my body screaming to move, to understand, to see his face again. But before I could say anything else, the door behind me slammed shut on its own. The sound echoed through the house like a heartbeat. The sound of the door slamming made my heart jump into my throat. The air in the cabin shifted, it felt charged, alive, almost humming with something I couldn't explain. He was standing somewhere behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath, but still hidden in the dark. The faint flash of lightning outside gave me a glimpse of his outline, familiar, yet different. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked, my voice trembling more from confusion than fear. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, his presence calm but unsettling. "Because you started something you don't understand," he said softly. "And now I can't stop it alone." My pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" He took my hand, just like he did that first night, and pressed something cold and metallic into my palm. When I looked down, I realized it was a small silver key, old and slightly tarnished. "You locked something away before I left," he said. But it didn't stay buried. Lightning flashed again, illuminating his face for a brief second, and what I saw made my stomach twist. There was a faint scar along his jawline that hadn't been there before, and his eyes, they looked tired, like he'd been running from something for a long time. "I thought you left me," I whispered. "I did," he said quietly. "To protect you. But you turned on the light that night, and that's when it found you again." Before I could ask what he meant, a loud crash came from the other side of the cabin. Something fell, maybe a chair, and the sound of footsteps followed, fast, heavy, and too close. My instincts kicked in, but he caught my wrist again. "Don't move," he hissed. "It can't see us if we stay in the dark." I held my breath, listening. The steps stopped just outside the door. Then, a faint scratching sound started, slow, deliberate, almost like something was tracing the wood from the outside. My skin prickled. I wanted to ask what was happening, but his expression told me not to. His grip tightened around my hand as if letting go would mean losing everything. And then, just as quickly as it began, the sound stopped. Silence. He exhaled shakily, still holding my hand. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered. "But now that you're here, you have to see what's in the basement." The basement. My heart skipped a beat. "Why? What's down there?" His eyes met mine in the dim light, filled with something that looked like regret. "The truth," he said. "The reason I disappeared. The reason you were never supposed to turn on that light." I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. Part of me was terrified, but another part, deep, quiet, and unexplainable, needed to know. He led me toward a trapdoor hidden beneath an old rug. The key in my hand fit perfectly into the rusty lock. As it clicked open, a rush of cold air escaped from below, carrying the faint smell of earth and something faintly metallic. The moment the trapdoor creaked open, a chill rolled up from the darkness below, thick and damp, like the air itself was holding a secret. I hesitated, my fingers trembling around the edge of the opening. He held the small lamp in his hand, its faint glow barely enough to cut through the shadows. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. The steps were old, wooden, and unsteady. Each creak echoed in the silence as we descended deeper underground. The walls were lined with stone, cold to the touch. When my foot reached the last step, I saw it, a small wooden chest in the center of the floor. Dust covered everything, but the chest looked untouched, as if someone had placed it there recently. He walked toward it slowly. "This is what you locked away," he said. "I don't remember," I whispered, confused. "I've never seen this before." He looked at me for a long time, his expression torn between sorrow and something I couldn't name. "You do remember," he said softly. "You just buried it too deep." He knelt and placed the silver key into the lock. The sound of it turning echoed like thunder. When the lid opened, I felt my breath catch. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Some were old, faded, others recent. All of them were of me. Different places, different years, and in every single one, he was there, somewhere in the background. Watching. Waiting. I stumbled back, my heart racing. "What is this?" "You asked me to keep you safe," he said, standing slowly. "But you never asked, from what?" Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face through a small basement window. And then I saw it, his reflection in the glass wasn't moving the same way he was. For a moment, it lagged behind, its eyes darker, colder. "What are you?" I whispered. He stepped closer, his voice almost breaking. "I was supposed to protect you from the thing that wears my face," he said. "But when you turned on the light that night, you let it in." A deep, rumbling sound echoed through the walls, and the lamp flickered violently. His shadow on the wall began to twist, stretching unnaturally. He grabbed my arm. "Listen to me, whatever you do, don't look at it directly. If you do, it'll take your memory again." Before I could react, the lamp went out completely. Darkness swallowed us both. I heard him shout my name, and then silence. When the lights flickered back on, the basement was empty. Only the chest remained open, the photographs scattered on the floor. And in the reflection of the basement window, I saw myself standing there. But this time, the reflection smiled back. When I looked into that reflection, my whole body froze. It was my face, but not the way I'd ever seen it. The smile was wrong, too calm, too knowing. And for a brief second, I couldn't tell which one of us was real. I stumbled back, heart pounding, trying to remember what he'd said before everything went dark. "Don't look at it directly." But it was too late. The reflection blinked, and when my eyes opened again, the basement was empty. The chest, the photographs, even the air felt lighter, as if something heavy had finally left. I climbed the stairs, my legs weak, my thoughts spinning. The storm had stopped. The air outside smelled fresh, quiet. I should have felt safe, but something deep inside whispered that nothing was the same anymore. For days after, I searched for him. I went back to the cabin, to every place that ever reminded me of him, but he was gone, as if he'd never existed at all. Only the photographs remained. Yet when I looked closely, he wasn't in them anymore. It was just me, standing alone. Maybe that was the truth all along. Maybe the person I loved was never really there. Maybe he was the shadow I'd kept alive in my memories, the part of me that refused to let go. And when I turned on the light that night, I didn't just let something in. I let something out. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when the room goes dark and I reach for the switch, I still feel it, the faint warmth of his hand stopping me midair. And I wonder if he's still there, somewhere between the light and the dark, keeping his promise in the only way he can.